Hello guys, today we're gonna take a look at Jarvan Support, a build I've been theory crafting, looking around on what's possible since it seemed really fun to me to play him as support in different ways and utilize his kit into into for your team and having some fun. It's more of a fun build really because he's more of a damage dealer really, and uh, but he also gives support to his team with his E, giving attack speed to everyone that's near his E pole. First, we're gonna take a look at the runes. Over here, I have a more of a support engage rune set with Guardian. You can also go Aftershock, but Guardian is better for protecting your AD carry. Aftershock is necessary if the people you engage on will do a lot of damage on you. But mainly, I will take Guardian. And then I will take Font of Life, which is uh, really easy to proc, really easy to get on the enemy. Both with your EQ combo and also your W will proc the Font of Life. The other two ones are also good options, but I would generally go for Font of Life. And then we have bone plating, especially against a lot of poke supports and the enemy team. Bone plating is really good, as well as second wind. Conditioning is more for later stages of the game, but this is mostly just for the laning phase, so you will go bone plating. And here I have unflinching, since you have to go against a lot of CC champions, especially enemy supports, but you can also go Revelize for better shield and heal power, which goes really well with some of the mythics. But Overgrowth, you could go Overgrowth, but the other two just go stand over it. A lot of supports will literally take Unflinching over Overgrowth. For secondary runes, depending on what your first item will be, uh, I would go Domination with Zombie Ward and Relentless Hunter for movement speed and the extra wards, but you can also go for Sorcery with Mana Flow Band and Scorch if you need more mana or and want to have deal more damage with your E. They're both good options. If you really need more mana, I would go for sorcery, uh, but mainly as well. Like I really like zombie ward, the rune, and then taking with movement speed to roam faster, since supports like to roam. For the mini runes, I take ability haste so I can use my EQ combo more, and I don't really need damage unless I go for damage. And the magic resist armor is always good. You can even go a little bit HP, but these two are always good to go. You can go offensive here, which is not. You can just do this, but I like to go this to be more tankier, especially in the early game. For the other rune set, I have Summon Airy, which is more common to go on Jarvan support. You see a lot more people maybe go that when they go Jarvan support. Again, with the Manifold Land, you can also go for nullifying Orb here, because especially if there are a lot of magic damage on the enemy team, this will take very well. Demon's Cloak is situational if you really want to be more faster after you flash. Here I have Transcendence, again for more cooldown reduction. You can also go Clarity if you really need more movement speed, but Transcendence is way better here. And Scorch again. You can also go for Weather Walking, since you will gain move speed in the river, which is really nice for a support when they want to roam to mid lane or to top lane. And then here, again with Resolve, with Font of Life, Revelize, or Unflinching. I really like Font of Life, especially on Jarvan. It's really easy to get Font of Life on the enemy with just pressing your W near enemies. Easy, very nice. And again with the same setup. Uh, the reason why you would take either this rune set or the other rune set, this is more for engaging, going on top of the enemy, which Jarvan really likes to do, being more like a tanky support, and providing more damage to more tankiness to your team. You will take this rune set if you want to deal a little bit more damage, or you want to boost your team more. which also depends on which mythic you want to go, because there are multiple mythics you could go as a Jarvan support, and depending on what you want to go, also depends on the rune set you go, because there are some mythics you can go with Summon Airy, and other mythics you cannot go with Guardian, or vice versa. Now I will take a look at the items for Jarvan support. You could start with both those four support items, but generally the relics, the steel shoulder guards are better, especially because you know you're a melee champion and you just want to give your ADC easier to farm because you're not gonna poke as much. If you take the poking one, I do recommend going mana full band because it will take a lot of mana. And then with the ward, control ward or a potion, depending on how you want to play it. For the mythic, these are the four best mythics in order. Looked of the Iron Solari is generally just really good on a lot of tanky supports since it gives your team a shield and armor, magic resist, and it's just generally a really good support item. I see a lot of supports go this, and it's also really good on Jarvan. And you know, you both give armor, attack speed, and everything to your team. Although, since a lot of people take this, I also like to just go something else then because you don't wanna, always stick to the meta. So you could go Shirali Battle Song, which you could go with the Airy rune set because you give your allies movement speed when you empower them, and you give a movement speed with the active, and also a little bit ability power when you do more damage with your E, and it just has good health and ability haste. And then you have Evershroud, which is something you could take, although it is not as strong as Iron Solari, especially in the early stages of the game, because you only do 10% more damage in the early game, and in the early game you don't do that much damage yet, especially not your AD carry. Later in the game, Evershroud would maybe eventually be better than Solari, but then they won't be as protected as much, because they're also squishy, so a lot of people just go to the Iron Solari. And basically, these three mythics you will go with Guardian or Aftershock. You could go Airy in with some of these others, but Shirali's Battle Song goes really well with the Airy because when you press your E, you will generally always speed them up, but you also give them a shield, and with that you can build some other items which we will talk about later. Turbo Champ Tank is also built a lot on Jarvan in the jungle actually, to especially by some higher elo people. They build Turbo Champ Tank, the granting movement speed towards enemies and turrets, and then you can just engage on them really fast, and then you don't need to flash or something. And then we have some optional mythic items: Imperial Mandate and Moonstone Renewer. They're not as great as the others, but Imperial Mandate does give you a big damage boost on the enemy, although it only works when you either have another slowing item or you really have to hit your EQ combo, because else it does not proc. Same with Evershroud actually, you only can proc it with your EQ combo. And Moonstone is just generally just healing. Only also take You can only also take this when you have the airy runes, uh, which will just generally heal your team. Although it does not perform as well on Jarvan as the other runes. For boots, you always want to take defensive boots, unless you're gonna roam a lot. If you're gonna roam a lot, you want to take mobility boots. And if you really want more cooldown reduction, you can go for Ionian boots of lucidity. But generally, these two will always be good because defense, and you don't want to die as fast as Jarvan, especially if you go a bit more squishy or mythic. You like to go more defensive here. For items to build, the probably the best item here, in my opinion, is Zeke's, since when you uh, immobilize an enemy, so you will do more damage to an enemy. And since this is not a mythic, you can go Iron Solari into Zeke's, and you don't have to build Evan Shroud. But combining Evan Shroud with Zeke is also really strong. But I just really like getting this item since I just don't really like boosting my teammates in that sort of way. Although you can only proc it with your EQ combo and maybe also your ult. I just realized maybe you can also proc some of these with your ult if they get moved a bit. And Knight's Vow, which is always strong to uh, put on your AD carry, and then you get some of the damage instead of the AD carry. I really also really like this item. I just don't really like these two items on supports. Whenever I'm able to buy these on a champion, I will as a support. And then I hear Chemtech put I can't pronounce that. We have here Chemtech, which is just uh, the grievous wound item for supports. Although this only works if you have Airy. If you do not take the Airy path, you cannot build this item because you will not give your allies the buff. Instead, you have to take the Chainsword. Then we have Redemption, which is health and healing, which is really great. You're not bind to having Airy. You can just build this if you go the tank path. Then we have Umbral Grave, and I also really like building this item. Most of the time, you have to build this as a first item or rush it after your mythic. Because this is good because you can destroy wards, and it's just a generally strong. Like Pike takes this item, and Senna as well. A lot of like you can also go this on Jarvan because he takes the attack damage. He likes the lethality and the ability haste, and he can destroy the wards or traps, which is really nice. Although it's sometimes really weird building it with the other items, so it looks really weird sometimes. But it's a good, brushing this into and then getting on tank items only. It's not bad. It's not a big deal. Then we have Michael's Blessing, which is really only good when the enemy has a lot of CC and you need to remove CC on your support. Like it's just only a situational item. Then we have Ardent Sensor, another item that you need Airy for. But then again, you will become more squishy. But your Airy will boost in shield and power. But that's not really a reason to build this. The only reason you want to build this is because you enchants the power of your AD carry, granting them attack speed and on-hit damage, which just really goes well with champions like Kokma or Jinx, champions that use a lot of auto attacks. Then we have Frozen Art and some other tank items, which are just generally like, hey, these are tank items and you want to build them because you need Grievous Wound, because they have a lot of crit damage or attack speed and stuff. Like generally, it speaks for itself. Again, it's good. They're good tank items, so you become more tankier. And Force of Nature, same with Deathman Plates. Just if you need more movement speed, if you go the Camp Tank path, these two items are really great to follow that up with. Then we have Black Cleaver, which is kind of weird to see in all these support and tank items. But the reason I put it here is because you remove armor from the enemy champions, especially if they have a lot of armor on the enemy team. And as a support, building armor penetration isn't really a thing to do because you're not the one that's gonna deal damage. But Jarvan has a built-in armor remover on his Q. At level 1, he will remove 10% of the armor, and later stage of the game, like max, he will like remove 26% of the armor. Combining that with Black Cleaver, if an enemy champion has 200 armor, you can almost remove 100 armor from them with just the Q and Black Cleaver combo. Although the Q armor reduction does not stay forever. The Black Cleaver do stay a bit longer as long as you keep attacking them. It just removes armor from enemy champions if they have like multiple tanks building a lot of armor. You could build this. I would not recommend building this early in the game. I would recommend this building this as your third or fourth item, or maybe even later as your last item. And then we have Gargoyle Stoneplate, which is generally just a really good tank item with the shield to stay alive longer. Then we have some very situational items that kind of look troll if you buy them. I mean, not all of them, but generally the Staff of Flowing Water gives you both ability power and ability haste. Jarvan does not really, aside from ability haste, he does not really have to need this item. This generally just if you have an AP 80 carry, for example, or AP carry, sorry, or you just have a lot of AP on your team and you could build this and get ability power and ability haste. Mainly just the ability haste is good, you know. Maybe you have a Varus on your team. He doesn't mind some ability power and ability haste. And you have antennas change, which is just generally becoming more tankier against one particular enemy. Although he doesn't really Darfan doesn't really benefit from this item as much, only his teammates do. If you have a lot of CC on your team, or you know, like just more CC on your team, you could build this on a champion against a champion that just uh, has built a lot of tenacity or something. It's very situational though, and there are really other items you could build instead. Then you have Ryla's Crystal Scepter and Ryla's Grudge, which is basically just slowing the enemies. This works both on hitting your Q and your E and your ultimate. There isn't really any reason to really build Ryla's. I just had to put it in because it works the same as Ryla's Grudge, which is basically gives you armor penetration, attack damage, ability haste, slows the enemies. You're not really building it for the armor penetration, only for the attack damage, ability haste, and slowing the enemies. Since you're not exactly the one dealing the damage, but if you have to, you can. And then you just slow the enemies with your after even hitting your EQ combo. And you know, even if you just hit your E, they will be slowed, and Font of Light will be procced. You know that stuff. And Abyssal Mask, again, if your team has a lot of AP damage, you can reduce their magic resist and boost your team damage a bit. Yeah, that's about it for the items. A lot of items are kind of situational, or you can only build them if you have the airy rune path. But generally, all the tank items and items that do something when you CC them or have font of life on them and shit. Those are always good to build. Okay, so I will put a separate video of gameplay of the Jarvan support build because the video is already taking way too long, way longer than I expected. I should really explain things faster or explain less, or but I really like talking about a lot of the items and runes on why I take them and why you should take them. But I will upload a separate video of the gameplay because I had some gameplay. Not everything was perfect, but that doesn't matter because that also shows it flaws because it's definitely not a perfect build. And yeah, so a separate video for the gameplay will come maybe this week, maybe next week. I do not know yet. I do not recommend doing this instantly into ranks. I recommend doing this in normals first with a friend that plays AD carry with you because sometimes playing support
Demacia,
alone is not
now and
really
forever.
ideal and fun because the enemy, your allies will like flame you, and you don't understand why you pick Jarvan Support because it's not meta at all. Or you could try this in an ARAM, since you know it's all a lot about boosting your team anyways. You could just do that in ARAM, or heck, even try it in a bot game or something.
Today is a good day to
But I
die.
do not recommend instantly doing this into ranked unless you know what you're doing and you know exactly how to play Jarvan and you know what you're doing, of course. But yeah, so thank you for watching. Thank you for
No
listening.
quarter for the wicked.
Like and subscribe, and I see you guys in the next video.